As an older lady, I should simply celebrate Christmas and stay out of the way. However, it seems that after being invited to spend Christmas vacation together, Margaret has been kicked out of the house. First things first, I need to tell Jeffrey about Margaret's true nature. Somehow, I'll expose Margaret's facade. I refuse to be family with someone like her. I am Michelle, 72 years old, living with my son Jeffrey. Jeffrey is nearing 40, still single, and my husband passed away 3 years ago. Jeffrey used to live alone, but moved back home when he changed jobs as it was closer to his workplace. Our current house might look new at a glance, but it was actually remodeled a while ago from a nearly broken down place due to years of deterioration and poor fittings. As a result, the remodeled house has become comfortable and clean. From his perspective, my husband seemed like a family-loving man who decided to remodel for our comfort. But in reality, he was a source of long-term trouble. He was traditional and stubborn outside but free-spirited at home, imposing his rules and berating me if I deviated slightly from what he wanted. His favorite phrase was, "Who do you think provides the food here?" However, he was often out playing poker, horse racing, and visiting casinos, leaving us barely enough to live on. Still, he acted arrogantly in front of me and Jeffrey, canceling family outings for poker or missing school events. I could have divorced him and raised Jeffrey alone, but I refused to be defeated and stayed until the end. Jeffrey, too, endured silently in front of his father, never showing tears. When my husband passed away from illness, he left us with a small inheritance, this remodeled house, and most importantly, my dear Jeffrey. For me, having my beloved son means I'm not lonely. Unlike his father, Jeffrey has always been kind, selflessly caring, and unable to ignore someone in trouble. But he's also self-sacrificing, hesitant to express his opinions, and tends to be swayed by others. I worry his excessive kindness might lead him into trouble someday. His current workplace has a good environment but is mostly male-dominated, with little talk about women. Now that my husband is gone, I'd be alone if Jeffrey marries. Though it would be lonely, I hoped he would meet a wonderful woman and start a family. Then one day, Jeffrey made a sudden confession. "I've promised to marry someone. I want her to meet you, Mom." I was overjoyed, almost jumping up. Jeffrey, nearing 40, working among men, commuting between work and home, living with his mother, he's not the most sought-after type. That a woman wants to marry him is such a joy. If things go smoothly and Jeffrey marries her, he will, of course, leave my side. It would be a lie to say I wouldn't feel lonely, but as a mother wishing for Jeffrey's happiness, I couldn't be happier. If you've chosen her, I definitely want to meet her. Well, what's she like? Jeffrey's eyes sparkled as he spoke, a look I had never seen before. If Jeffrey speaks of a woman with such eyes, she must be a wonderful lady. I eagerly anticipated meeting the woman Jeffrey confidently chose. Then, on the promised day, Jeffrey brought his girlfriend home. "Mom, this is Margaret, the woman I've been dating and considering marrying." However, the woman Jeffrey brought neither introduced herself nor nodded in greeting. She just stood there silently. At first glance, she seemed aloof and distant, not the type I imagined Jeffrey falling for. She continued to ignore everything, barely greeting, and just surveyed the house. She sipped the tea I offered with disgust, wiping everything she touched with disinfectant wipes. These odd behaviors made it clear that this wasn't the typical first meeting with a future mother-in-law. I secretly dreamed of doting on my daughter-in-law like my own child, but that dream seemed to shatter in an instant. Frankly, I felt uncomfortable in such a short time and didn't want to get too close. Even if she was Jeffrey's choice and a future daughter-in-law, it seemed she felt the same as days passed without any contact after Margaret left. I confronted Jeffrey after she left. "You're dating Margaret and want to marry her, right? From today's encounter, I can't see her appeal." Jeffrey explained that Margaret was shy around new people but charming, strong, and kind, having overcome tough times. They had met at a party hosted by a coworker, where Margaret had shared her hardships. While I thought it was typical Jeffrey to want to help someone in need, dating and marriage were not simple matters. However, considering today's behavior and how they met, Margaret seemed like a complicated person. Despite appearing cute in the relationship, I had a feeling it would be difficult if they lived together. Then, one day, Jeffrey announced he was moving out, probably because of Margaret. Watching Jeffrey with mixed feelings, he murmured quietly, "I didn't expect Margaret to go ahead with it at this time. Apparently, they had discussed deciding on a date and making the commitment as a couple, but Margaret had gone ahead and submitted the marriage application alone just before noon that day. It seemed unreal, but Margaret couldn't wait and had bound them as a couple without Jeffrey's knowledge. Considering the first impression, Jeffrey's stories, and this unilateral action, it raised concerns. I felt nothing but anxiety. Are you sure? Okay, it's fine, I reassured myself. Margaret is a kind woman. Then, I received a message from Margaret. She wanted Jeffrey to choose his wedding gift from several options she had sent. When I checked the items, they were all worth several $1,000s. Even for my son's wedding, that's not an amount I could easily afford. Margaret's actions, showing such rudeness upon submitting a marriage application without Jeffrey's knowledge to become a couple, and then demanding ultra-expensive home appliances, were simply too audacious. It was surprising that Jeffrey chose someone like her as a life partner. But to celebrate his new beginning, I decided to give them a state-of-the-art high-performance air conditioner. Margaret will love this air conditioner, so I guess this will be my wedding gift to you too, I told Jeffrey. All right, Mom, thank you. I appreciate you listening to Margaret's request, Jeffrey responded. It wasn't cheap for me either, but I splurged for the sake of Jeffrey and his beloved new life. Even after installing the air conditioner Margaret wanted, I received neither thanks nor any contact from her. Is this how people are nowadays? Time passed without any particular communication from Jeffrey or Margaret. They were living in an apartment in the next town, less than an hour's drive from my house, but I heard nothing from them. It's not too far for a visit, but they must be busy with work in their newlywed life, I thought, so I refrained from contacting them. However, a situation arose where I had to reach out. My brother, Jeffrey's uncle, had passed away. He was an uncle to Jeffrey, too, who had loved him when he was a little boy, although he was in contact with him less frequently now. Jeffrey was fond of him as a child and wanted him to attend the funeral, even if he couldn't make it to the wake. Having not spoken for a while, I wanted to hear his voice and called, but no matter how many times. I called Jeff's mobile, but it wouldn't connect. Even worse, when I tried the next day, I got a message saying the call couldn't be connected. It seemed like I was blocked. The kind Jeffrey who always stayed in touch over small matters, blocking me? Hard to believe. But with no way to contact him and the funeral not waiting, it proceeded without the Jeffrey couple. Half a year later, Margaret suddenly contacted me. Michelle might be lonely this summer, and Jeffrey has a middle school reunion around the end of the year, so he wants to let loose. Can we spend Christmas vacation at your place? She brought up spending Christmas at my house without mentioning the wedding gift or the blocked calls during the funeral. To her, maybe those incidents weren't a big deal. It seemed Margaret didn't even consider the possibility of me refusing. Despite my reservations about spending time under the same roof as Margaret, I agreed, hoping to see Jeffrey after so long. Sure, that's fine. I look forward to seeing you both. It's been a while. Then at Christmas, they visited my house. There was a slight discomfort with them around. They were always together, not in a lovey-dovey or happy way, just together. Margaret followed Jeffrey even to the bathroom or when he needed to fetch something. At first, I thought she had business in the same direction, but it seemed not. It might sound harsh, but Margaret's gaze and movement suggested she was monitoring Jeffrey, ensuring he didn't do anything unusual. I was shocked when I caught a glimpse of Jeffrey's face as I stood up to serve tea. Jeffrey was looking down, avoiding eye contact with Margaret. I struggled to understand why they were in such a situation, but the reason for their behavior would become clear later in the evening. Jeffrey left for his middle school reunion, feeling awkward. Alone with Margaret, I stood up to clean as usual. I started vacuuming, but suddenly the vacuum cleaner stopped. It was working fine yesterday. At that moment, with a loud bang and a strong impact, I found myself knocked over into the garden along with the vacuum cleaner. Luckily, I was wearing thick socks, but with the snow outside, I'd freeze if I stayed there. Who would do this? A suspicious person? A burglar? As I tried to get up, I saw it was Margaret who had thrown out the vacuum cleaner and me. "Older lady, celebrating Christmas out here suits you," Margaret said. "What? Wait, Margaret, do you realize what you're doing?" I exclaimed. "Shut up, older lady. I'm looking forward to the times while he's gone. It'll be a great night without you in the way. Sit. Don't interfere," she snapped. Saying that, Margaret started making a phone call to someone, apparently a man, judging by the name she called. Her flirting voice and the way she spoke suggested she was planning to meet a lover in this house. Indeed, the house was newly remodeled and minimalistic, thanks to me. But who would think to use their mother-in-law's house, where their husband grew up, to cheat? Margaret, it seemed, was the type to kick out her mother-in-law and bring her lover over, taking advantage of Jeffy's absence. I found myself in the snowy yard, kicked out and left to fend for myself. But I had a plan. Donning an old pair of shoes and a jacket from the shed, I decided to fight back. Firstly, I doubted Jeffrey knew about the affair. Even Jeffrey, who was kindness personified, would surely react if he knew his beloved wife was cheating on him. I needed to contact Jeffrey immediately and have him witness the affair about to happen in this house. But since my calls were blocked on Jeffy's mobile, I needed a different approach. That's when I thought of Jeffy's childhood friend. They had been close through college and often dined together even after graduating. The friend ran a deli inherited from their parents in the local shopping district. I headed there desperately hoping for some information. At the deli, I found his parents, who said he might be at a reunion at a pub in the same shopping district. I rushed to the pub, hoping to catch Jeffrey. Luckily, I spotted Jeffrey running from a convenience store. Good timing. Margaret kicked me out of the house. She's planning to spend time with some man there. I heard her talking on the phone. Do you know anything about this? I asked. Margaret cheating? No way, Jeffrey exclaimed. He immediately left the reunion and headed to my house. I wanted to go too, but he said it was too dangerous since we didn't know who the man was and asked me to stay away. I hid in a nearby business hotel, leaving the matter between Jeffrey and his wife to him. The next day when I returned home, I found Margaret beaten up in the garden, naked. Older lady, don't you care to help your daughter-in-law? I can't even get into the house. How did you raise your son? She snapped. I couldn't believe the gentle Jeffrey would beat his wife to such an extent and leave her in the garden. Entering the house, I found Jeffrey drinking coffee. Margaret is naked in the garden. What happened? I asked. I don't know. She was arguing with a lover last night, so maybe that's it. She's going to be nothing to me now, so it's not my business, Jeffrey replied indifferently. While I took refuge in the business hotel, Jeffrey had confronted Margaret and her lover at the scene of their affair. Thinking it might serve as evidence, he took photos of the lover's face and even recorded the encounter. I was impressed by his calmness in such a bizarre situation. From the recording, it seemed the lover, not expecting Jeffrey's return, lashed out at Margaret in anger. The recording also captured the lover stripping Margaret of her expensive-looking branded clothes, apparently intending to sell them. After the lover left, it was Jeffrey who stopped Margaret from re-entering the house. I think you understand from the recording. Margaret isn't repentant. She married me for money and convenience, and she keeps saying her lover is her #1 priority. I have to step out for a bit, so I'll leave Margaret's matter to you, Mom, Jeffrey explained. Leave it to me, I replied. What do you mean? I didn't want such a person in my house, so I didn't let her in. If Mom wants to let her in, I won't stop you, Jeffrey said before leaving. As far as I was concerned, my daughter-in-law had been awful to me, and now she had gotten her just desserts. I felt no obligation to help her for no reason and decided to leave her as she was. Although Jeffrey's photos and recording gave me a good idea of the situation, I decided to check the security camera footage for a clearer picture. I was thankful I had installed the cameras after hearing about a burglary at a relative's house. Neither Margaret nor her lover seemed to realize their actions were being recorded in someone else's house, causing trouble. While examining the footage and photos, I noticed something familiar about the lover's unusual hat. As I was pondering this, the noise outside caught my attention, accompanied by the doorbell. When I opened the door, there was a police officer. It turned out Margaret had played the victim to the neighbors, leading to a report of an injured naked woman in the garden. Sorry for the disturbance, officer. Margaret got involved in some trouble, but neither Jeffrey nor I saw her get injured. We have security cameras so we can explain what kind of trouble it was, I explained. I shared the events of the previous night along with the evidence from the cameras and photos. The police seemed to understand that Jeffrey and I were not involved. However, they couldn't leave an injured naked woman in the garden in the middle of winter. Margaret was taken away in a police car. Suddenly, I remembered who the man in Jeffy's photos of the lover was. Just then, Jeffrey returned. Mom, I'm back. I filed for divorce. Margaret and I are now complete strangers, Jeffrey announced. Divorce? What do you mean? I asked, shocked. Margaret has been throwing tantrums when things don't go her way since we got married. I've tried to meet her expectations, but at some point, she started using a pre-filled divorce form as a threat, Jeffrey explained. Having fallen for Margaret, I tried to fulfill her wishes, but she exploited my willingness, acting tyrannically when things didn't go her way. She used the divorce form as leverage. Hearing this, I was at a loss for words. But then I remembered something and shared it with Jeffrey, who suddenly stood up with an idea. We headed to the police station where Margaret was being temporarily held. I waited for you, Jeffrey. I knew you'd come. You're my dear husband, not heartless enough to ignore your wife in this state, Margaret said. What are you saying? We're strangers now. I just came to tell you something with Mom, Jeffrey responded. Huh? What do you mean, a bad joke? I understand this older lady coming to apologize, but strangers. Margaret must have thought Jeffrey was coming to rescue his beloved wife and expected me to apologize for leaving her in the garden. I submitted the divorce papers with your section filled out, Margaret. We're no longer a couple, I interjected. What? What are you doing, Jeffrey? Remember when you submitted the marriage application without permission? It's too convenient that it's okay when you do it to others, but not when it's done to you, right? Jeffrey argued. Margaret was speechless at Jeffrey's logical argument, but I had to say something too. The man you brought home, he's a business owner, right? I asked. Yes, he's a young, talented owner of a beauty salon. He proposed with a bouquet of roses last week, saying he'd make me a CEO's wife, Margaret replied confidently. That man's actually an unemployed freeloader who caused trouble at a restaurant, leading to his unemployment. I often browsed social media and reluctantly saw a story about someone causing a scene in a restaurant. I thought I had seen him somewhere before, but he was in the vortex of a topic that had recently come under fire by many people. I read that this guy was repeatedly getting in trouble for drinking straight from a pitcher of water, putting Tabasco in it, and other such nuisances, I revealed. Margaret's confidence shattered as the truth unfolded before her eyes. I read that he was recently fired from his part-time job. That's a lie. His profile had a long list of accomplishments. He wouldn't do such things. Well, regardless, my house has a lot of damage from his tantrum. I could file a report for the nuisance, I stated. Margaret, convinced she had become CEO's wife, was in for more shocks. In order to push Margaret to the edge, we decided to fold in even more. Also, one of your company's executives is a longtime friend of mine. What you told my workplace about the affair, I didn't reveal the affair. I just discussed your relationship history with Jeffrey. Any problem with that? It's better not to do things you'd be embarrassed to be seen doing, I explained. Shocked by the cascade of revelations, Margaret turned pale. Leaving her behind, I exited the police station. Later, Margaret's mistreatment of me and her affair led to her divorce becoming public at her workplace. She was a long-time employee due to a promotion, but her actions caused her to lose that opportunity. Her terrible behavior led to her being transferred to another region where everyone knew about her, resulting in her worst ending due to her infidelity. Why is everyone avoiding me? I was just in a pure romance with the talented CEO. Are they jealous of me, who could have been a CEO's wife? Margaret exclaimed. Tell a friend of yours on the board to stop the stupid workplace bullying. You think you're being ostracized and bullied just because you're out of place after being transferred? That's a naive way of thinking. There's nothing I can do about it, sorry, I responded. Eventually, Margaret had nowhere to belong at work and ended up resigning. Worse, she became homeless. How can you leave me, your ex-daughter-in-law, without a home in the winter? Isn't it heartless to have a woman shiver outside? Margaret accused. What are you saying? Who kicked Mom out into the snow-covered garden? You're only thinking of yourself. Your words and actions don't match, Jeffrey retorted. The apartment where Jeffrey and Margaret lived was company housing for married employees, so Margaret was evicted due to the divorce. Despite this, Margaret, not giving up, repeatedly harassed Jeffrey. You're there, aren't you? How can you not help your wife in trouble? Don't you have any kindness? Margaret pleaded. You expect kindness from others while ignoring your own actions. But I guess explaining this is useless, I remarked. Not satisfied with harassing Jeffrey, Margaret also came to my place, even following me to the supermarket. Can you leave your daughter-in-law in this situation? Would you do the same to your son? Your son abandoned his troubled wife, abandoned his troubled daughter-in-law. You brought this upon yourself. Remember your actions, Margaret cried. Each time the security system activated or bystanders called the police, making Margaret known as a troublemaker in town. Exhausted by her persistence, Jeffrey and I consulted the police and obtained a restraining order. Margaret, looking for a new target, started attending matchmaking parties. But with no money, job, or proper appearance, she was turned away at the door, becoming infamous as a party crasher. Finally, Margaret's assaults stopped and we lived in peace. Mom, I was out of my mind back then. Margaret cut me off from home, screamed at me all day. I finally came to my senses. I'm so sorry. Jeffrey and I are living together again. Whether Jeffrey remarries or stays with me, I'm happy as long as he shows true kindness to others, I expressed.